Hi there, I'm Professor Robert Kumar, and I wanted to do a small tutorial on C++ data structure called vector, right? Vector or vectors, and I have used this in many times. One of my favorite data structure to use, really makes it very easy to do, to deal with, a list of data in C++. So what I'm going to do here, I want to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen. Let me get this all squared up, and my recording is on. I'm sharing my screen video, everything's okay, looking good. Sorry, looking good, right? So what I've got to do here now, we have used arrays many times, right? We used arrays many times, and vector works very similar to an array, right? If something like that, vector, there is the beginning of the vector. I'm going to call it V, right? And this is the end of the vector, of course. And of course, in the middle it has got various data, okay? And the reason I'm putting an arrow here is because using a vector, right, you don't have to, it doesn't limit you or restrict you by the size. Array does, right? Array, when you say the size is 10, that means the size is 10. However, when you're using a vector, you don't have to worry about the size too much. It takes care of it itself. So it's very similar to an array, right? Let's just say I have some numbers here, 12, 13, and 15. And if I want to access that number, I have to say V, right? That would be 0, 1, and 2, position 2, all right? And, in looking at this vector, I mean, each item is referenced through an index, which starts at 0 and goes to the end of the vector. And this is how you access a vector. So what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and open a C++ debugger, right? So normally, for teaching like an online simple class, I use the C++ online debugger. Really works really well for me, right? I mean, it's not as sophisticated as some other ones, but it works really well for me. All right. So goal here, anytime that you learn a class and then you take class, you want to understand what each line of code is doing, right? Each line of code is doing. In C++, this is the main function that you need to write. This is where the code starts executing, right? I'm using IOStream here because I need to use some code, such as, getting input from the user or outputting anything to the user. Those are defined in the IOStream library. And these are also included in the namespace called standard, right? And this is so important because if not, then you'll have to use extra code, in a lot of people. So it's always important to have your namespace included. So in order for us to start with a vector, I'm going to take that out. Okay, so vectors are pretty cool, right? And the way you do that is simply you go ahead and you declare a vector, right? In order for you to declare a vector, what you got to do is you need to include the module or the library that has the definition. So you have to say include and simply vector, right? Looking good, vector right there. And then now I can go ahead and I can use that vector library. Vector, you provide a data type. I can put an int here, right? And I'm going to call this scores as well, scores, right? So that's how this will declare an empty vector. Okay, empty vector. You can also declare a vector with some items in it. And the way you're going to do that is I can say vector, and I can say string, family names. And here I can put in, actually not an equal, not like Java, right? Family names, and I can put in double quotes. Let's just put John, right? Mary, and Ken. All right, John, Mary, and Ken. So that is looking good. Okay. The other way, now you see these vectors that I've created. Okay, the first vector doesn't have a size, right? Because there's a second one, since I have added some items to it, it does have a size, right? The other way also you can do is you can create a vector, and you can say you can tell how much. I'm going to say goals here. Let's just say I'm a good soccer player, right? I'm really good at playing soccer. How many goals did I put? Score each goal, each game, right? I can put a number here, and let's say this list. In the tournament I played 10 games, so I want to capture right? How many goals did I score? So 3 ways, right? 3 ways you can, many ways you can do it, but 3 ways I want to show you how you go about declaring a vector, right? So I'm not going to use these two today, right? I'm not going to use these two, but I'm going to work on this one, right? So first things first, if we want to go ahead and add items to a vector, right? And the way you add items to vector is, add items to vector is basically, you simply say scores dot pushback. Pushback is the code that you need, pushback, and I'm going to put 23 in here. So what does this do? This adds item. Oh, comment is double forward slash, right? And this adds items to the end, right? So instead of to the end, this comment is just escape right there. Okay, very cool. All right, add a couple more, pushback, and let me add 78, right? I'm going to add, and let me add one more here, just to add, just to have a few items that I can do various things with it. Pushback, and this would be 78. Oh, I kind of 78, 34. Right. Okay. So now that I have some items in my vector, right? How do I go about printing items in it? So the way you can do that, and I love this, and this is my favorite thing in using data structures such as a vector or an array list, is this for loop, right? And I think in some languages this is called enhanced for loop, right? This will iterate through the vector. Okay, so the way it is done is basically you simply say for my vector in this case is an integer data type, right? So I can put integer here, integer I, right? And I'm going to say what is in the name? Scores, right? Scores, and then basically go down here, and I'm going to see out I with a new line. Okay, so now I'm going to run this and see, just want to make sure that this is working properly, right? So you see my items have been printed right here. So far what we have seen how to declare a vector, and in most of the vectors that I use, I normally declare like that. I don't specify size. If you need to, if there's a requirement to do it, you go ahead and do it, right? If you need to declare a vector with items in it, initial items in it, that is how you do it, right? And if you need to declare a vector, right, this is with a size, right? With a size, right? And then this is how you add items to it by using the dot pushback method, right? Adds item to the end, and this is how we write a loop that will loop through each item. So basically, what it is that is the name of the vector, okay? And this loop, as it's cycling through each item, it's giving that item to me in this variable I. It's giving me that item in the variable I. All right. So now I'm able to print the values I. Okay. Also, now that you see that I can use pushback on a vector data structure, data type, I should be able to take something out, correct? And the way that is done is also you can do a pushback. You can do a scores dot popback, right? Popback means take it out. So now if I I need to put some code here. So this will remove item from the back of the vector, right? I mean the last item. Actually, it will remove the last item from the vector. All right. So with that, so I'm going to take out one more, right? That will take out one more, and then I'm going to let me go ahead and print this out, right? I want to print this out. Actually, I want to see what happens. So in order for me to do that, I can simply copy my for loop again, all right, and put it down here. That will print out what items is in the vector. So since I know all of my code here is working properly, I actually don't need my for loop for today. So I'm going to comment that line out as well. Just the output part of it, right? I'm going to comment it out because I really want to see if if this loop prints 2 items, right? Anybody can tell me why I want to see, why should it print 2 items? Anybody can tell me? The reason is because I'm removing 1 item at the end, right? So run this code and let's see if it prints out. It prints out 23 and 78. So it prints out the first item, the second item, and the third item has been removed, right? So the third item has been removed. Okay, so now let's look at some other methods that we can use on a vector, right? The other method that we can use on here, which is very handy, is the cout. Cout is, of course, I'm trying to output something on the screen. I'm going to say, right, the size, the next size, and that would be scores dot right, scores.size, right? That will give me the size of the vector. Now, there is this other thing that will confuse you to some extent, and what that is the capacity. Now, let me put this on the screen. Let me run it, and then I'm going to talk about what those are. Okay, capacity. And the way that is done is scores dot capacity. I want to make sure the spelling is correct because. Okay, so now run this code, right? Run this code and see what shows on the screen. Oh, something went wrong. Something went wrong, and I have a typo here. Typo here and run this one. So while that is working, let me take a drink really fast. So now you see, right? The true size of my vector is 2. And the reason? Because I have 2 items in it, right? Capacity is basically what has been allocated in my vector to be used, right? Capacity is not a problem at all. As I add more items to my vector, the capacity will increase. So let me show you that. And in order to make that easy, I'm going to copy these items that I added earlier, right? So I added the 3 items to begin with. I removed 1 item, right? Now I have 2 items left. I'm going to add a couple more. I'm going to add a few more. And let's just say I'm adding in the sequence 10, right? 20, 30. So when I run this, I should see altogether 5 items, right? 5 items, because initially I put 3 items in my vector, right? And then I took out 1, right? Now I should see these 3. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for a second, right? The other way you can also loop through or cycle through your vector is by using this other code, which is really cool too. So I'm going to show you this. So this is, using a for loop to get items in vector by index, right? So that is that, and basically I'm going to say my for loop int I is equal to 0. Normally when my for loop I put them together, I don't know why, but that's just what I've done. And then I is less than. Now watch this. This is really cool. I can do scores dot size, right? I can do scores dot size, because remember this element size, it gives me how many items is there, right? So I can use that scores dot size, and then I can do a I plus plus, of course, right? Where's my I plus plus? I plus plus, do my loop. So now in this loop, I can do a cout, right? And I can say item at index. I want to print that I out because I want to see my index too, right? Index I, and go ahead and put a space here, and then I'm going to put. So the way you can do that is you can do it a couple ways. You can do scores, and you can do a at, right? At I. That means lowercase I, right? That means that simply means get item, right? Get item at a particular index, right? Particular position, right? So let's go ahead and run this. Let's go and run this, and I'm also going to comment this other loop that I have out, right? Because I don't need that anymore. The loop is there. I'm going to comment out the output, right? I'm not going to run this anymore. So I'm going to keep it. Now run this code and see what happens. Score, that should be a scores, S with an S. Okay, so look at that, right? That's really cool. Now I have 5 items in my vector, right? I have 5 items in my vector, and I initially started with 3. I took out 1, I popped out 1, right? And then I added 3 more, so I have 5. And now you can also see how do we go about how we can access items in the vector using the at the add code, right? Add method. I'm sorry, the add method. All right. So that is that, right? The other, let me see what are the code that that we can use from here. So we found out how to add items, how to pop items, how to access items. So what we have done so far, right? What I want you to do, right? The code that we work together. I think everybody can see everything on my screen so far. Let me take out some space so you can see full of my code. Maybe I can take that out. Anyways, so just a recap of what we have done. Initialize the vector, right? Empty vector, added items to it, right? We saw the loop that helps us go through each item in the vector, right? And the variable I would hold that item. Sometimes you need to get that item and do something with it. Variable I will do that for you. Allows you to to remove an item from the vector. And then how do we get the size of the vector? How many items are there, right? How do we add some more items? And how do we use this other loop where you can use the .at method, right? .at method. All right. So that is that. And normally what I do is that as soon as I have finished explaining a set of code to my students, I always ask them to look at my code, right? And do an example, right? Do an example and see what things they don't understand. So I'm going to ask the student to create a vector, right, and add names of friends in it, right? Friends in it. And at least five names. Let's put 5. So I want the students to add 5 names of friends in it, right? In it. Hopefully that sounds good in it. And and then I want you to print or output all the names in the vector, right? And then I want number 4 to remove the last name, right? And number 5, print or output. When I say print, it's the same thing. Output the size and capacity of the vector, right? Vector number 6, I want you all to go ahead and add 3 more names to the vector, right? To your friends list. I'm calling it list, but it's a vector, by the way, right? Number 7, I want you to use a for loop in output all friends name, right? And I want you to use the .at method, right? .at method. So now what I do is that I let my students go ahead, and you as a student go ahead and do this, all on from 1 to 7, right? And then use the example that I've given you on the board here, and try that, and let me know please if there's any questions. All right, thank you.